Um, yeah. I can already feel the overwhelming sense of hatred coming through the screen at me. Um, let's do this. My name is Alex. This right here is HorrorHubUK, and this is a video that I'm immediately regretting. We're here today to rank the remake. I mean, look, we're coming in hot. You know what I mean? Like, whoever you are, it's undeniable to say that the George A. Romero 1978 classic Dawn of the Dead will always be the better version of the film. But nobody can fault that Zack Snyder and James Gunn just smashed the doors off this version. It kind of, in 2007, it just flipped the genre on the head. It remained very true to the classic, but just felt a little bit more visceral. It was a welcome upgrade, if I'm honest. Like I says, the classic 1978 version was a little bit outdated in terms of the visual effects and stuff. That's not to say that, you know, people don't have a love for the visual effects that the originals brought. They were groundbreaking in what they were doing, but it was just nice to see that concept dragged into like the 20th century. And like I said, Zack Snyder, for me, Zack Snyder is one of my favourite directors. He's a visual auteur, so to speak. So look at 300, and even say what you want to say about the DC stuff. The stuff that he did with the Justice League and Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice it looked stunning, and this was the same. Like, there were sequences in this film that just looked beautiful. He's a very visual storyteller, and it worked really well with Dawn of the Dead. And the fact that you had the likes of James Gunn on the script as well. I mean, it was a dream team. It was a dream team. Is it the best of the remakes, in my opinion? It's not the best. There are better, as we'll see from the list. But for me, like, I give this a solid three stickers out of 5. It was just it was consistent. It felt grounded. It was visually stunning, and it was an overall enjoyable experience. For me, number 4, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake. Now, again, like I say, this is going to be a very controversial list, but I really enjoyed this film, like, more than I think I should have. It was, yes, now, what Tobe Hooper did with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was as visceral and raw as you can physically get with a horror film, which is why it still stands up today. I still watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre repeatedly because there is nothing else like it. There will never be anything like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The way that it was shot, the fact that it was literally shot in the middle of the Texas desert, and it was ridiculously hot, and the way that the camera and the cinematography was constructed, you are never going to be able to repeat those circumstances. It was literally lightning in a bottle. However, with that being said, this remake was an enjoyable experience overall. I mean, we had the return of Tobe Hooper as producer, the original cinematographer. There was a number of the crew that were on the original film that came back for this, and you feel it. Although it's not the same visually, you can see that there are elements there, that gritty, visceral. You felt sweaty. You feel sweaty watching this remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I've always said, I've seen a number of interviews with directors, and what they essentially say is, if you can walk away from a film with one sequence that remains memorable, one shot that remains memorable from a film, you've done the job. And for me, this is why I've put this at number 4, because the sequence in which they are sitting within the van and the girl ultimately commits suicide, and the camera zooms. It has a tracking shot from the front, travels through the cast, past Jessica Biel, and through the head of the girl that was. Oh my god! Like, I will never forget that sequence, and for me, that's why it's up there. It's. There are a number of sequences in this film that do it. Yes, the story is a little bit lackluster, but you can't argue that the performances across the board were done really well. The cinematography was fantastic, and it felt gritty. It came so close to recapturing what the original did, and that's why it's at number 4. You know what I mean? Come at me. And for me, that's why it's got the big 3.5 stickers. That's why. Number 3. Now, this is where the list starts to get, okay. We're getting into the meat and bones of it all now. Evil Dead, the 2013 remake by Fede Alvarez. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. This was a film. This was the reinvention of a franchise that kind of lost its way a little bit. I'm a big fan of the Evil Dead franchise. Ash Williams, forever an icon within the genre. So to take what the originals did, which was very obscure, almost comedic in a sense. Like I said, back in the day, you can't argue that, especially Army of Darkness, what Sam Raimi did was really lean into the comedy aspect and the comedy angle as the Evil Dead films went on. This was a welcome addition because it scrapped that. It took Evil Dead for what the original concept was, and that was shock, gore, and horror. And that's what Fede Alvarez did. Now, this guy's got horror chops. You know what I mean? He's got, obviously, Don't Breathe. He then went on to do Alien Romulus. All fantastic films. All bring something to the table when it comes to horror. And this remake was outstanding. Now, like I said, yes, it reinvented and basically kind of remade the original in terms of the story. People go to the cabin, you know, find the book, all hell breaks loose. But for the kills alone, for the sequences of death alone in this film, this is up there all day, every day, just because of that. Like I said, there's a sequence in the bathroom where she's obviously in the shower. We've got the sequences where it's the sink, the glass, the nail gun. There are too many. This is a gore fest from start to finish. The performances across the board, again, were absolutely fantastic. Jane Levy, what she did in that role was outstanding. And it really put her on the map, so to speak, with regards to her performance. She was unreal. You couldn't help but just get completely invested in her as a character. And the finale, it built up. You were thinking, how can this film now take this further than what we already have, with all these people dying left, right and centre? The finale, when she's outside the Nobi cabin, was just unreal. It was a visual feast, and it was a privilege to watch. It was literally like the rain of blood, and it was insane. And that's why this is up there all day, every day. Like, for me, this was always going to be in the top 3, always. For me, like I said, this is a big, solid 4 stickers out of 5. It has to be. There's no argument about it. And it set up basically the next few Evil Dead films. Like I said, when we have Evil Dead Rise, and then we obviously have the new one that's coming out soon. So yeah, Evil Dead 2013. You got the goods, Fede. You've got the goods. This had to be number 2. There's no if, buts, and maybes about it. There's not. Love it or hate it. Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake. Such a fun film. Like, it is. It's undeniable now. I love Friday the 13th. It's a juggernaut in terms of a franchise. There's Friday the 13th and there's Halloween. They are the 2 biggies for me. Like, when we're talking about like the longer running franchises. And now you've got Scream. I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt. I love Scream. That's my favourite. But for me, Friday the 13th and Halloween are the 2 juggernauts. And what Friday the 13th did, especially this one, was made it fun. This was a fun film to watch. Yeah, we kind of explored and touched on the origin story a little bit with regards to like what we all know now, spoilers, of Friday the 13th, where it was originally Jason's mom. It touched on that a little bit, but really lent into Jason. Now, some may argue that, you know what I mean, the franchise is a Jason, it's about Jason, but originally that wasn't the case. They wanted to put the twist on it and do something a little bit different rather than just have the standard slasher film. But this embraced it, just embraced the concept of Jason, made it the Jason that we wanted from the very, very, very beginning. Now, my favourite instalment of Friday the 13th is Chapter 4. I love that film. I thought the casting was fantastic. This, though, this is up there. This is a second for me because I had an absolute... It was just too much fun. The casting were all fantastic. It was very tongue-in-cheek. It was very 2000s. But that's not a bad thing when it comes to the slashers. I think sometimes you do just want a slasher where the killer does what he's there to do. There isn't a motive there. Jackson doesn't need motive. He's just going to go and butcher some teens. And that's what this film did. And the comedy in it was fantastic. It was all really well timed. And the visual effects, again, were absolutely outstanding. The kills were brilliant. But it still kind of kept the tropes and the little nuances and the hints to the originals, like it says the doc toward the end. And it's nice watching like these teen heartthrobs just get their comeuppance. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why it's number 2 for me. Just because it just embraces the chaos of what a slasher should be and doesn't overcomplicate it, but still retains that feel and that kind of gritty nature of the original. So yeah. It's a big 4 out of 5 stickers for me. And that's why it's number 2. Just because it's just a popcorn movie. Sit back, stick it on, watch some people get murdered. What more can you ask for? I'm already immediately regretting. Oh, okay. Number 1. Yep. I'm going there, right? Halloween, Rob Zombie, 2007. Come at me. My number 1, best of the remakes. Right, now, I know I can already hear the internet screaming. Rob Zombie, you either love him or you hate him. As a director, you can't deny that the man knows horror. Yes, it's very over the top. Yes, it's very stylistic in the approach, and especially controversial when it comes to films like Halloween. Now, some may say that the context and the substance of Rob Zombie films isn't there. I would argue the toss. This guy's a master at creating cult films that push the boundaries in terms of horror, and that's why I love... I mean, House of a Thousand Corpses is hand down one of my favourite films. It is. It's original, and the characterizations and the casting and everything is fantastic. Now, what made Halloween so good for me and so enjoyable was that rawness. Now, the original Halloween, again, you are never going to beat the John Carpenter classic. You are never going to beat it. You never. That's what I've said throughout every one of these films. You are never going to beat the originals. But it's about finding and allowing the creators to be creative. And that's what this is. So... this was Rob Zombie's take on the mythology of Michael Myers. Now, did we need an origin story? Probably not. Probably not, because ultimately that's what made Michael Myers the mystery that he is. That's why he is the shadow. This is why he's there was no history there, which is arguably why some people would say that as they've gone on, in terms of like Halloween 2, Halloween 3, Halloween... that's where they lost their way a little bit, because we were trying to explore and find out what made Michael Myers. Now, you don't necessarily need that. But this did that in such a way that for me, it didn't feel like it was tainting the legacy. This, for me, Halloween, this one, and Halloween 2 of the Rob Zombie ones are completely standalone, very much the same as what the new 2018 Halloween trilogy did. This, I could take this Halloween and go, right, yes, this isn't the original, but this is a take on the original and a take on the character that is perfectly enjoyable as a standalone. Doesn't need to be tied in. I like the exploration of how Michael Myers became Michael Myers. I do. Now, I know some people don't, but that's because we are tying it to the original. That's not what this film is about. This is about a creative individual who has gone balls to the wall, doing something that he loved with a character that he loved. And for that, I think this is what that film oozes. It oozes passion. It oozes originality. This is just a Rob Zombie film through and through. It was visually fantastic. The casting was absolutely brilliant. And the story was well written. And it was extremely well performed. The Michael Myers, Tyler Mane in this, did an outstanding job as Michael Myers. He did. It's undeniable. Yeah, I believe that when we went into character design a little bit, I'd have preferred to have kind of stuck a little bit more to the original, but it did so enough. It was the still same stylisation as what we got in the original Michael Myers and Halloween, but it just kind of put that little bit of grit on there and a little bit of flair. And obviously, it was just an enjoyable watch. And I know people are going to scream, and I know people are going to hate and cuss it, but let's just stop. Let's stop. I'm going to put the world of cinema to rights. Let's stop gatekeeping. I am the big advocate of let creators be creative, and that's exactly what this is. And this is why I enjoyed this film, and still do now so much. It is underrated. In terms of the entirety of the Halloween franchise, I would pick this over any of the new trilogy. I'd pick this over any of like 2, 3, 4, the countless installments of Halloween. For me, it's the original, and then we're putting these two up there, hands down. And that's why, for me, it is a big 4.5 stickers out of 5. The rewatchability of it alone, I can go back to this countless times, and yet that's why it's my number one remake. I know there's opinions. I do. But come on, let's embrace it. And that's it. Those are the ranking of the remakes. Those are my top 5. But let's discuss. Let us dive into the comments. Let me hear what you guys and girls think. What are your best remakes and your favourite remakes in the world of horror? We are an open forum here. Let's dive in. You know what I mean? We will have a chat. As always, just let me know what you think. But yeah, if you like this kind of thing, then please drop us a subscribe. It is greatly appreciated. And you can also check us out on TikTok for obviously things that are a little bit shorter. But yeah, thank you ever so much for checking this video. It is greatly appreciated. And just join me as I shine a light on all things that go bump in the night.